Hi everyone, it's Lynn from Blue Calla Patterns and welcome to video 5 for the Balm Wax Canvas Backpack. In this video we're going to do the final assembly of our bag, so we're nearly done. You're going to need your lining shell, your exterior shell, and then once we've sewn these two together, we're just going to set our grommets. So you're going to need your grommets and your grommet setting tools. And then we're also going to attach our drawstring stopper. Okay, so we're going to attach the exterior and the lining together, but before we do that, I just realized I forgot to make some of my center marks on the sides here of my top band, so I'm going to do that now. You line up the seams at the front and the back of your top band pieces. And then you're going to mark the center. On both sides. And then on this side. And that's just to make sure that the top band of the exterior and the lining are perfectly aligned. Okay, so now we're going to insert the exterior into the lining shell. So your exterior is right side facing out and your lining is wrong side facing out. And then you're going to make sure that everything is inside, your straps, your flap, and your drawstring cord, making sure none of them are near the top edge. Okay, so we had made the center marks on our top band lining pieces previously, so we're just going to line up that middle seam of the exterior top bands with the center mark on the lining top band. And clip that together, and then do this one here as well. And then we're going to line up the center marks on the top band exterior with the side seams of the top band lining pieces. And then we're going to clip everything in between those center marks. Okay, and now we're going to sew these together along the top edge, making sure to backstitch at the beginning and the end. Okay, so these are sewn together along the top edge. So now I'm going to turn my bag right side out through the opening at the bottom of my zipper pocket. So there's two things that we're going to do. We're going to top stitch the seam allowance along that top edge. And I can't press really because I used my waterproof canvas, so I'm just rolling the seam, and then I use a clip to hold it in place when I think it looks nice. Okay, so now I'm going to top stitch around the top edge of my bag. Okay, so I've top stitched the top edge of my bag. So there's three things left to do. We're going to close up the bottom of our zipper pocket. So you just line up those bottom folded edges. And then we're just going to sew the bottom edges together. You can sew them by hand or by machine. I like to sew by machine because I'm not very good at hand sewing. I just make sure that I'm sewing as close as I can get to the edge, but sewing both of the folded edges together, and make sure that you backstitch at the beginning and the end. Okay, so this is sewn up. I can tuck that back inside. Okay, so everything is tucked in nicely inside my bag. Now it's time to set our grommets. So I don't have a press for cutting holes or setting grommets. I do everything by hand, same as with my rivets. When I'm doing the hammering part, I am going to turn off the sound because no one needs to hear me hammering. So I have my marks here, and there's a couple of things that I do. So I like to make sure that the hole that I punch out is not too big. So one reason why a grommet might come out is because the hole that you punch out is too big. So I have a hole punch that is exactly the same size as my grommet. So I make sure that I use the right punch. Okay, so in the my hole punch, there's an opening here, so I can see just to make sure that my mark is centered in the middle of the punch. And then I kind of just press lightly and it shows me the position of my punch to make sure that I have it perfectly centered over the mark. Now when you're punching out, make sure that you protect the back. I use this block of wood. I've noticed that I need to use a soft wood for my block, otherwise for some reason it doesn't work, it doesn't punch out the hole. I'm not sure why. Okay, so there's my hole punched out. Now, because I'm using wax canvas here and it doesn't fray, I don't have to worry too much about using fray check. However, my lining is a fraying fabric, so I do still add some fray check to that fabric all around the opening. And then this is it can be a potentially messy part, or you might ruin your bag if you do this incorrectly, but to make sure that your grommets don't come out, it's good to use a little bit of glue. So I'm using E6000. And make sure that you put just a tiny little amount. And I just put this along the edge of my grommet, a very, very small amount. Because if you put too much, it's going to go onto your fabric and you can't get that off. Okay, so you place the nice part of your grommet in through the front of your bag. Okay, and then you have to flip it over. So here's you're going to need the anvil and post for setting. So you're going to turn this over. And then you place the washer over top. And then place the post. So one of the important things that I've noticed about doing this is that you must make sure that the post is completely straight, because if it's off a little bit, I found that you can easily dent the front part of your grommet. Also make sure that you're using the right size anvil for your grommet, because if it's a bit too big or too small, it'll also create dents in the front of your grommet. Okay, so there's one grommet set. And now I'm going to set the rest of my grommets, but I'm going to do it off camera since it's very repetitive and boring to watch multiple grommets being set. Okay, so I've set all of my grommets, so there are 8 in total. And now we can take the drawstring and pass it through. So you're going to go in through the first one, and then out, in, and then out, and then do the same for this side. In, out, in, out, like this. And then you're going to need that last piece of webbing, the drawstring stopper. So there's a few things that you can do. So first of all, depending on the size of the cording that you're using, you're going to want to figure out how much wrapping you need to do to allow room for the cord. So I'm using a fairly small cord, so I can really overlap at the back here. And there's 2 options. So I'm going to use a clip just to hold this in place. So there's 2 options now. You can remove the drawstring stopper and sew it down the center. use a little rectangle box of stitching, and make sure that you don't go too wide and leave room for your drawstring. Or what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to set a rivet in the center so that I don't have to sew at all. Plus I like the look of the rivet. So I'm using a rivet with a small post because this isn't overly thick. Then I'm just going to punch a hole in the middle. Now my webbing does fray a little bit, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to use a drop of glue on my rivet. And I'm going to try to not get that glue anywhere else except for in the hole here. My hole did not punch all the way through. Okay, there we go. Now hopefully that glue that I added is going to hold that all in place. And then I'm going to turn off the sound and I'm going to set that rivet. Okay, now I have a fully functioning drawstring. And then you just tie a little knot. Okay, now the last thing we're going to do is we're going to add the last part of our buckle. So in order to figure out the best position for the bottom buckle is to stuff the bag. So you want the buckle to be able to close when your bag is really full. So what I like to do is I buy these rolls of brown craft paper from the dollar store, and they're great for stuffing bags for photos or for these kinds of purposes. Okay, so I stuff the bag nice and full. Then I place this like this. And you can fold towards the front or towards the back. I'm going to fold towards the back because then I won't have the edge showing. And then I close the buckle. So I kind of figure out how I want where I want the buckle to be positioned. And I feel like this is quite good. So I'm just going to remember this position. Now you have two options again. You can sew the strap in place, or again, you can use a grommet like I did for the stopper. I'm going to use, sorry, not a grommet, a rivet. So I'm going to use a rivet again. I just find it makes it so much faster. If you're going to sew, it's going to be really difficult, so you want to unstuff your bag and sew it in place. I'm just going to have a look at it, make sure I'm happy. Okay, so that looks nice. And then I'm going to set my rivet in the center of the strap. The seatbelt webbing strap sort of has like a herringbone pattern, so I know that the center, sort of the end of the arrow, is the center of the strap. Makes it very easy. And then again, I'm going to use a drop of glue because I don't want actually let me make sure this time it went all the way through. I'm going to use a drop of glue again on the rivet because I don't want my strap to fray and I don't want my rivet to come undone. Okay, I'm going to push that through, and then I'm going to undo this to make it easier to see the back. Okay, so I see my glue has come through. That's great. Okay, and then again, I'm just going to set my rivet. I'm going to unstuck the bag first. This is my first time using waterproof canvas for the exterior of a bag, and I like that it doesn't need interfacing and that it doesn't fray. However, it's a little bit more difficult to work with than wax canvas. I would have to say that wax canvas is my favorite to work with. Okay. So I'm going to turn off the sound while I set my rivet. Okay, now our bag is done. I'm just going to remove the plastic from my buckle now that I'm done. And we're done.